Hello, in this video, we'll be talking about the quantum biological pillar of water. What is easy structured water? How does it impact our biological system, our body, our health, our wellness? So let's get started. Since the beginning of the 1900s, researchers have put forth this idea that there are two states of liquid water. That in liquid water, and we're familiar with our solid, our gas phase of water, and our liquid phase of water. These researchers talked about there being two different states of a liquid water, especially at the surface of hydrophilic surfaces. Hydrophilic meaning water loving. The water can come right up to the surface. It's not repelled away. And this water at the surface of hydrophilic membranes in our body, our cell membranes, our fascia, our tissue, our mitochondria. These surfaces are hydrophilic and change the structure of water. And this was something that researchers like Albert St. Georgi and Gilbert Ling talked about, how this structure of water and the flux between an excited or a coherent state of water versus a ground state or an incoherent state of water, the flux between those two states of water gives off energy and gives off a vibratory signal that can be used to communicate and create the energy needed for biological action. Now, in the early 2000s, Professor Gerald Pollack and his team out of the University of Washington were the first to identify a new phase of liquid water. And they found that against these hydrophilic, water-loving surfaces, the structure of water starts to change. It doesn't look like that bulk water that we normally see. It becomes viscous and gel-like as one sheet of this EZ, and that was the term that Gerald Pollack came up with, meaning exclusion zone, because it's a tightly organized water that pushes out all solutes and particles, creating a lattice formation. And in his book, The Fourth Phase of Water, Pollack puts forth the idea that this lattice, this hexagonal formation of water, just like a honeycomb, creates a sheet that acts like a template for more sheets of this organized, structured, easy water to form. And as this water builds, it pushes out a positively charged hydrogen and creates what researchers are calling a proton-rich zone or a proton wire. And what you have is this build up of this easy structured water that is negatively charged with this positively charged zone of water. And that's exactly what Pollack found in the laboratory. He put an electrode in that negatively charged EZ water and one in that positively charged water that forms right outside this structured water zone. And that separation of charge, just like the separation of charge in a 9-volt battery, was enough to light an LED light bulb in the laboratory. Absolutely incredible, and certainly enough to help power biological action. Now we see that this zone of EZ water that forms on our cells on the outside, that forms intracellularly on the inside of the cell, on our mitochondria and our different organelles, it has been associated with a beneficial health of that cell. We've seen the association of the thickness of that easy structured water zone on the outside of our cellular membrane, on the inside of our cell around our organelles, to be associated with health, where a decrease in that structured water zone has been associated with ill health and cancerous cells. Now, this makes a lot of sense because that negative charge that's being held in that easy structured water zone is correlated with that negative charge that we run on. And I'll get into this more in the 5th video, where we talk about frequency and how we are Running as a living system, our human body is running on a negative electrical charge. So the association of how that robust and rich and thick layer of easy structured water around a cell and inside of the cell can be associated with health makes sense on a few different levels, including our need to have that negative charge for health. Nowadays, there are researchers around the globe looking at how water and this new phase of liquid water impacts living systems. Professor Korokoff has developed new technology called the BioWell that looks at gas discharge visualization of water, this plasma around water that happens, and it's absolutely incredible. Aquaphotonics is another way to study this new phase of water. Raman spectroscopy, there's so many different ways for people to investigate this new phase of water and how it impacts our biology, and how water that is structured differently can affect our health when we drink it. We see from research in agriculture, in animal models, and in human studies that when we increase the coherence of the water, the excited state of the water, this structure of the water, then it has positive impacts on our biology. Of course, there are people that call this pseudoscience, but this new emerging field has real data, real research behind it, and the impacts are incredible. Stay tuned for the next video where we look at light and how it impacts our biology from a quantum biological perspective. Thank you so much for joining me.